All right, everybody, welcome to another Let's Talk RPGs video with me, the Digital Dungeon Master. And in this video, we're going to talk, well, but I am going to talk about one of my top 5 all-time favorite games, and that's Talislanta. So most people out there, especially if you're new to tabletop games, if you're new to dice throwing games, you'll probably say, what the hell is Talislanta? But if you're an old grognard like myself, you've probably at least heard of Talislanta, and it was a game that came out around the middle 1980s. And there's actually 6 editions now, I think, and I love Talislanta, and I've got all kinds of stories. I'm going to talk about everything that I like about Talislanta, so get yourself a drink, have a seat, and just enjoy the video. So, the first time that I ever heard of Talislanta was at a game store, and it was in Orlando, Florida, right across from the Orlando Naval Training Center. It was a game store called Enterprise 1701, and this is in the middle 80s. My friends and I, we were skipping school every single day. I didn't go to school for like 4 months in a row. But anyways, an Enterprise 1701 at the game store. There were a bunch of sailors around this big table, and we were like, we didn't recognize it. And then I saw this book, which is the first edition Talislanta Handbook. It's a thin book. There's only about 100 pages or so, 85 pages. And it's the entire rule book for Talislanta. And this is the original book that I bought. And it was $10 at Enterprise 1701. And I still have the price on the inside cover. So yeah, I bought this book, and I just absolutely loved how the game was set up. But I'll talk about all that, here in a second. So Talislanta really is a great game, and it's super easy to play. There's really, besides your damage rolls, of course, there's your D4 weapon damages, your D8s, but then there's like larger giant-sized weapons and stuff that you can use, and they go up to like a D20 in damage. But you got to have a hell of a good strength to wield those weapons too. So I do like that, strength requirement on the weapons. But like I said, the game is so simple to play. There's really only 3 roles in the game. Beside you have your damage, but there's only 3 roles. There is a attribute roll, sort of like if you're using your strength or your intelligence, you can do rolls like that. You can do attribute rolls. It's a D20 roll. You can do your skill check rolls, which is like your combat rating, your magic rating, your all your other skill checks, and they're all of your skills are categorized much like they are nowadays in the year 2018. So, in my opinion, Talislanta was way ahead of its time, especially for the middle 80s. Like I said, your skill checks were incorporated with your attributes. So like all thieving stuff is associated with dexterity, and any kind of like arcane stuff, magic, it's all intelligence related. All of your combat weapons, hand to hand, it's all strength based. So it makes sense to the way that RPGs have evolved over the last couple of decades. So I think Talislanta was, in some facts, in some ways ahead of its time. So you have your attribute checks, you have your skill checks, and then you have your attack checks or your magic rating checks. And the way that your checks are done, it's not like, a D20 plus a modifier, which it does happen like that. But before you add in your modifier, whether it be negative or positive, take, for instance, your attribute checks. it would be a DC set by your game master. And that goes for skill checks as well. So your tribute, your skill checks, they would be based off of a DC or a contest, like, you know, like you would in D&D 5th edition or any other game. So, you know, so you would take the difference of the comparison between the skills or the perception, and then you would use that as a modifier. So it's not like, because there's numbers. There's no, you know, 18 strength at a +4 bonus. It's not like that. It's just you have a strength, and if you're, say, a thrall, you'll have like a 4 strength or a 5 strength or something like that. That's just an example. All right, so there's no rolling 3d6 for stats in this game. It's just like a single digit number. And then, like I said, you have your magic rating rolls and your combat rating rolls, which are sort of like the main rolls in the game, because that's how you cast your spells, and that's how you attack with your weapons. So and I'll explain this really quick. How your combat rating works is you take, if you have a primary combat skill or secondary combat skill, you take your bonuses for whatever level you are. And leveling is great in this game too, and I'll talk to you about it in a little bit. I'm going to talk about everything. So this video is probably going to be pretty long. Like I said, grab a soda. So say you have a 5 combat rating and your opponent has a combat rating of 2. So you have 3 better combat rating than your opponent. So your roll will be a d20 plus 3 because your bonus is plus 3. Now, if you're the opponent and you're attacking, you would have a negative modifier. You would have a -3 to your roll because your combat rating, you're attacking that melee warrior at -3. And then you would do your d20 plus 3 or -3, whatever your modifier is. And you know, if you roll a 0 or less, then that's like a combat mishap or a magical mishap. And in the first edition book, there are a couple of mishap tables, D20 mishap tables, in the back of the book. But in the later editions, like second edition, there are no tables. So, and I'll talk about the different editions as well. And I really like those first edition tables, and I actually have those incorporated into Fantasy Grounds, and I'll talk about that too. So like I said, if you roll a 0 or less, it's like a combat mishap or a magical mishap, and you take a roll on the table. And there's some pretty vicious things that can happen. So if you roll a 1 or a 5, it's a miss. Nothing happens. But you know, if you're casting magic, you'll lose your, you know, one of your memorized spells, you'll lose that. But if you roll a 6 to 10, it's basically like a glancing blow, and you'll do half damage. And then if you have anything between 11 and 20, that's just a regular hit, and you'll do normal damage. But if you roll a 21 or higher, that's called a crit. And then you also get to, because every time you attack, you also get to state what intent. Like if you are just going to take his head off, you'll do double damage. But you can also have an intent of like knocking him prone or pushing him back or something like that. So if you do roll a 21 or higher, then it's a critical success and you do double damage, and you get to do your intent as well. So it's pretty crazy. As long as your intent is within, you know, it's within reason. So the way that the rolls are great, because it's not like you're attacking versus armor class. It's not. It's you're doing a d20 check, and you're either successful, you're partially successful, or you fail. Or you can have a crit hit or a magical mishap or a critical mishap. So the way that the rolls are, I love the way that the rolls are actually, you know, are set up. And it's great. And like I said, I feel that the game is way ahead of its time because of the comparison of combat rating and stuff. I like that. And the way Magic works is awesome as well. And usually I'm not really into intelligence-based casters, but I like them in Talislanta because it works like a level. So there's there's all kinds of spells in Talislanta. There's baseline spells. But anyways, I'll talk about that. But anyway, same thing happens. Magical mishap, half damage, all that stuff. And I'll talk about magic when I get to it later. But it's the same thing. It's my corona cough. I'm just kidding. All right. So moving on, I love the way that the rolls are. I mean, that's awesome. And I wish my phone would shut up. I wish they would. I don't pay for them to give me these notifications. So, unbelievable. My phone won't even shut up. Sorry about that, everybody. So it's simple to play. There's only 3 real checks in the game. I love how all of the classes are pre-made. When I originally saw the Talislanta Handbook, the way that the classes are set up reminded me of basic D&D, where in basic D&D you have your classes and your races mixed into one. So if you're an elf, you're an elf, or if you're a cleric, you're a human. And I like that about Talislanta. And there's a massive amount in first and second edition, which first and second edition is identical except for a few things that I'll talk about here in a little bit. The game is the same. And between first and second edition, with all the different books, there's over 100 pre-made characters. And I love it. There's so much variety. So the game is simple to play. You got to do a lot of reading on characters and stuff. They're called character types in Talislanta. And yeah, it's great. And I love the skills customization also, which you can buy skills with your experience. And moving on from that, and I'll talk about all that stuff too. So that's what I really liked about the game when I first read it. But Talislanta has had a pretty, I don't want to say train wreck of a history, but they kind of have had a train wreck history. Although the game is great, in first and second edition, it was done by, the creator and his company, Bardtail Games. And then Wizards of the Coast got their hands on it on third edition. And then there were some legal disputes and stuff with the Talislantas, the Cyclopedia Talislantas and stuff. So third edition was Wizards of the Coast. Fourth edition was a company called Pharaohs. And then I guess they lost the license for fourth edition. And then it went to like Shooting Iron Press or something like that for fourth edition. And then fifth edition was Morrigan Press. And all those PDFs are available for free. So if you want to download first, second, third, fourth, or fifth editions, you can just do a search on Google, and it takes you to the official website, and you can go to their library and you can download high-definition PDFs for free. The owner of the game, the owner of the IP, has made all of those available for you, which is wonderful. So check out Talislanta as a little plug for them, because it is truly a wonderful game. But I think it's had a train wreck of, I think train wreck may be a little bit too harsh, but I mean, they've gone through a lot of different companies, and I don't think that's a good thing, to be honest. But that's just my personal opinion. And plus, with Wizards of the Coast, there were a bunch of legal disputes over some of the content, like volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the Cyclopedia Talislantas. They were created and then they're not considered official canon, but to me, they're considered official canon, and I'm using them because if they weren't going to be considered official canon in the first place, the time and the resources would have never been invested into making those modules in the first place. And they're like 70 to 90 pages or something like that. So I am actually using them as official content for my Talislanta game when I start it up here in the next months or so. But like I said, I think Talislanta was a little bit ahead of its time because of the way that the comparisons are done to get your modifier. It's not the norm. It's not a D20 and a modifier versus armor class. It actually takes the character and the NPC or the monster that you're fighting into comparison first before you do a roll. And then I love the way that the rolls are. You got your 0 to your 0 and lower for a magical mishap or a combat mishap. I love that, and then I love the 21 plus for critical. And I love the normal hit, the glancing blow for half damage and a miss. So you got a pretty good chance to actually hit your target or have a successful, spell casted. So like I said, the first time I saw it was at Enterprise 1701 in Orlando. I loved it. The sailors were playing. They even let us come in and play for a little bit. I loved it. And then we didn't, that was like the first time I played it. And then I would say probably a year or so went by. And then I saw it again. And believe it or not, I saw Talislanta in the most crazy place that you would see a game like this. I found it at the library, of all places. I used to live in this area that was basically all NASA families because of the space shuttle program built up. And my parents moved there in the late 70s and built a house and all that stuff. And as Port St. John grew, we didn't have any schools, and that's how I met all my friends, because I was shipped off to the opposite end of the county to go to school. And then I went through like 3 or 4 schools in a 4-year period while they were building our schools here. Where I lived, well, not here, but where I lived at the time. And so when the library was built, we were skipping school every day. And like I said, back when I was going to school in the 80s, there were truancy officers. And the truancy officers would stake out the malls and all the other places where the kids would want to go and hang out when they were skipping school. And then they'd get drugged by the ear back to the school. Your parents would be called, and it'd be a nightmare. So we went to the library, the new library that just opened up, and it was a 2-story library. It was beautiful, and they had D&D stuff there. They had, the AD&D first edition stuff. They had all the hardbacks. And I saw Talislanta. I could not believe it. And I was like, guys, we got to play Talislanta. And we did. We played Talislanta for a good while, and man, that was the second time that I had seen Talislanta. And like I said, it was at the library, dude. I couldn't believe it. So we would basically lock ourselves in they had these little conference rooms on the second story of the library. And you could go into these conference rooms, and they had like soda machines and snack machines up top. And we would literally lock ourselves in one of these and pull the blind down so nobody could see that we were in there. And we did that for months and months and months. And, that's because we just couldn't afford to buy gas every day to go to Orlando. So going to Orlando was a real treat, but it was cool to see that there at the library. Like I said, we hid there for months and played Talislanta. And my first character was his name was Klug, and he was a Thrall warrior. And I love the Thralls. They're all about combat. They can't have any kind of like primary magic bonus or primary magical power or secondary. So they're all about lusting for combat and melee. So I loved my Thrall. He was awesome. So we had a lot of fun playing Talislanta. I mean, I love D&D, don't get me wrong. It's my favorite game of all time. I love D&D. And after we were done playing Talislanta, I was actually disappointed, and I wanted to play more Talislanta, but everybody else wanted to go back to playing basic D&D. Well, actually, we played a hodgepodge of basic D&D, first edition advanced, and second edition advanced. The mechanics and the rules were the same with THACO and all that stuff. So as a compromise, my DM would allow me, because I played a basic D&D cleric. And if you're familiar with basic D&D, there's not a lot of customization for a cleric like there would be in like first edition or second edition, like Priest Handbook or Cleric Handbook. I mean, there was just so many options there. So to make up for me playing my basic character, my DM would allow me to use the skills from Talislanta for my cleric, which I thought was awesome. And I took that compromise like, no problem like that. So yeah, it was cool. I actually had fighting and, like that for my cleric. So I had a war priest in basic D&D before war priests were ever a thing or anything like that. So yeah, Talislanta was fun, but I kept wanting to playing it. I kept wanting to keep playing it, but everybody else, we just went back to D&D. So yeah, it was fun. It was a good compromise. So now that I'm older, I've reread, the first edition book, the second edition book, and I decided that I want to start running Talislanta, because of my fond childhood memories that I had of it with the comparisons. And, there's a lot of stuff we actually played wrong as a kid. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, wow, we played this absolutely horribly wrong. But it doesn't matter because we had so much fun playing it. So I'm not really worried about that. But like I said, the game's so easy to play. I was like, man, I really think that my players would like this. So I grew up playing first edition and second edition Talislanta. I didn't get to play third edition, even though I did pick those books up, which are on my shelf, as you can see behind me. And I did a What's on Dave's Shelf. So I do have most of the third edition stuff. I do have most of the fourth edition stuff. And I have a couple 5e stuff that I bought from like bookstores and stuff. I'm just talking like normal bookstores. This is like, at the infancy of like eBay and stuff, when nobody really sold stuff online. And so I did pick that stuff, but I never really read them. But I was like, man, I think I'm going to play a first and second edition Talislanta game, and I need to get it in Fantasy Grounds. So over the last couple of months, I've been working on taking all of the books. There are a total of 4 books in first edition, and then there's 3 official books in second edition, and then there's another 5 or 6 Cyclopedia Talislantas that are made by Wizards of the Coast. There's this Dispute that I mentioned. But you can't get those on PDFs like you can everything else from the Talislanta website. So, now that we're confined at home, I bought one of these page scanners. I got a little Epson scanner, and I tested it. It works really well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my paperback books, all of the Cyclopedia Talislantas, they're about this size, and I'm going to cut them all up, and I'm going to destroy the books. And I know some of you are going to be like, that's history and everything else. You can't destroy them. They're not going to be worth anything. I'm not worried about that. I need PDFs. And I need the PDFs so I can copy paste them into Fantasy Grounds, because I'm not going to type each book word for word. No way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting the books, and I'm going to create high quality PDFs. And then I'll be able to put the information into Fantasy Grounds. Because over the last couple of months, I've already got all 4 books from first edition into Fantasy Grounds, and I have all 3 of the second edition books done. So all of the official canon I've got merged. I've got everything in there in a player's guide and a a game master's guide. And it's awesome. I even got the adventures, everything, all the monsters, the magic items, everything. So now I need to take these 6 Cyclopedia Talislantas, volume 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I'm going to scan them with this Epson scanner, and I'm going to make PDFs. So, and in each one of these Cyclopedia Talislantas, it expands on the game so beautifully. There's lore for each one of these regions because each of these cyclopedias is one of the regions in the world of Talislanta. And then there's 3 or 4 fully fleshed out major cities from the region with, anywhere between 30 and 50 locations with adventure hooks, everything. There's new skills that you can incorporate. There's new character types. There's like a dozen new character types per book. There's at least 2 dozen new monsters for each region. There's a ton more magic spells. There's a ton of new magic items, all kinds of new crafting ingredients. I mean, it is awesome. There's all kinds of like new optional rules. Man, so getting these books into a PDF and into Fantasy Grounds and adding it with the other content is vital. So if you're worried about me tearing up the books, that's okay. I'm not worried about it because it's going to end up being about 600 pages. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these pages, including the covers, and I'm going to take them to a bookstore, and I'm going to have a massive book made. And I'm going to make sure all of the pages are evenly cut, everything, because I bought a paper cutter as well. And I'm going to have a nice hardcover book made with all of the Cyclopedia Talislantas. And I'm even going to take the official Volume 1, and I'm going to cut that up as well. So I'll have Volumes 1 through 6 in the same hardback cover. I think that would be awesome. So I'm looking, and it's only going to cost about, when I went to a bookbinder, we actually have bookbinders here that have storefronts in El Paso. I mean, we have everything here in El Paso. We actually have malls with stores in them. Amazing. But anyways, yeah, so it's going to cost me about $40 to $50 to have a beautiful hardcover book made with 600 pages. And I was like, I'll bring this in when I'm done, and you can make the hardcover for me. So I'm going to be doing that. And I'm really excited about, getting all of those books cut up, scanned, PDFs made, and my hardcover made. I'm really looking forward to that. So, but yeah, I'm going to be running a Talislanta game. It's going to be an open world sandbox type of game. And we're going to be starting in the city of Sibrel in the tavern. And my players are going to dictate what they want to do. And I'll have everything in first edition at my fingertips. And we will have a hell of a good time. And it's really fun. It's going to be fun. So what do I like about Talislanta? There's a lot of stuff that I really like about Talislanta. And like I said, I think the game was ahead of its time. And I've mentioned that a couple of times already. But now that I'm older and I've played games since the middle 1980s, I've seen a lot of games. And now that I'm older and I can comprehend rule sets and mechanics, I'm serious. It was ahead of its time now that I'm older and I can appreciate these things. So what I really like is, like I said, it's the ease of play, especially for first and second edition. No AC comparisons. It's just combat rating comparisons, magic rating comparisons, and, magic rating versus the level of the spell you want to cast. And then, DCs to be successful with a tribute or skill checks. It's so easy to play. I mean, it really is. But I did notice over the last couple of months, I started looking at the other editions that I did own that I picked up from the bookstore, like 3rd and 4th edition. And, once Wizards of the Coast got their hands on it, man, the rules went from, the lack of defined rules, like what I like about 1st and 2nd edition. The DM can adjudicate what he or she wants to do. And I love that about 1st and 2nd edition because it gives the DM all the power in the world. But when WotC got their hands on it in 3rd edition, and then, when Pharaohs got a hold of it and Morrigan Press with 5th edition, every edition just keeps adding more and more and more rules. And then it's like, you got like a version 3.5 Talislanta, and that's just not what I want. That's why I'm staying with first and second edition because that's what I played as a kid. So the ease of play, that's like the huge thing. Like I mentioned, I love the pre-built classes. It reminds me of D&D. There's well over 100. There's probably, with all of the, the Cyclopedia Talislantas, there's probably 140 to 150 character types to play. And the character types that you can play are amazing. If, some character types give you a mount, you can play a Casimir Moneylender, which you can literally start with thousands of gold lumens, and you can be a moneylender character. You can, it's crazy. You can be a thrall and you'll have a mount to start the game. And I love that because every character type is unique. It literally gives you your starting skills, your starting ability scores. It gives you roll this much for money, and it tells you what equipment that you have. And like I said, you play a moneylender, you're starting off with thousands of gold lumens. And that could be an interesting class to play. And, but like I said, pre-built classes, I love that. But there's customization as well. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So I love the big thing about Talislanta, because at this time, the D&D Gazetteers were coming out for basic D&D. And I loved the Grand Duchy of Karamikos. I loved reading all the lore about Karamikos. And Talislanta is so lore rich. The world books that are in first and second edition, it tells you about every single area. It tells you about the flora in these areas. Like if you go to Mog, which is in the southern portion on the coast, there's all kinds of rare herbs and stuff that you can find to make potions and charms and chakras and all these other things for crafting, but you got to go to Mog to get them. Or if you can find them in a city, the prices are so inflated because it's such a distance away from Mog. But then there's, Mog is like a jungle. So there's all kinds of dangerous creatures. And I love the way that the lore talks about everything. Who lives there, what you can find, what you can search, what creatures, what kind of ingredients can you get off of the creatures to make poisonous potions, or, you can make powders and oils. There's just all kinds of stuff you can do. And I like that. And that goes to saying that's why I think that game was ahead of its time, because no other games did that. Not from what I remember. So just the organization of the lore and the peoples that are there, the main cities, all these massive cities that are fully fleshed out with adventures and hooks. And but I love the lore of Talislanta. I love the lore. And there's all kinds of lore about the character types that you're playing too. Like you can go to Taz and read about the thralls. The lore is awesome. So that was a huge draw for me as well. And the lore really reminded me, like I said, of the basic Dungeons and Dragons Gazetteers. It really did. It reminded me a lot about that. So I really like Magic, and like I said, I'm not a big Magic class type of person, but I love that the way the Magic is set up. And I already mentioned how you do melee combat with your combat rating. And now with Magic, I love the way that it's set up, because if you're, like a magician or a caster, wizard, warlock, sorcerer, whatever you want to call it, you have your Magic rating, right? And your Magic rating is you get, if you have primary Magic as a skill, then you have +1 for every level that you are. So then you have a secondary Magic rating. If you are like another class that's heavy melee based, you can pick up primary or secondary Magic. So, but I will say this, the first edition book, now this is one of the few differences between first and second edition that I noticed. In the first edition book, it says a character class with a primary focus of Magic or a primary combat focus cannot take the opposite. So you can't have primary magic and primary combat at the same time. But in the second edition rule book, it does say that you can. So that was one of the differences between first and second edition. And the other difference from second edition was mass combat rules were added. So, but anyway, that's kind of like a little side tangent, and sorry. I'm trying to do all this from memory about what I like, and this is not scripted. I'm just, coming to you from my mind and my heart, because I like I said, it's one of my top 5 favorite games. But back to Magic. If you're 5th level, you'll probably have, a 5 or 6 magic rating, right? So spells work like this. There's your base level. And like I said, the rules are very vague. So there's really no mechanics on learning spells. Although you can go to, and this is another great thing that I love about Magic and Talislanta, because of the rich lore that it has. There's major libraries, several major libraries, I think 4 or 5 of them throughout the world of Talislanta. Well, the continent of Talislanta. And you can go into these libraries if you have downtime, and you can actually use your arcane skills, your researching skills, and you can research the library to try to find rare and forgotten spells. How cool is that, man? Like I said, it's ahead of its time. It's not like just saying, oh, I got this first level spell, or I get 2 second level spells. It's not like that in Talislanta. There's base level spells. So if you take, say if you just take elemental magic, there's like, within the elemental magic spell, there is like an offensive spell, an offensive part of the spell, and then there's like a defensive part of the spell too. So you can cast like an elemental shield, or you can cast like an elemental bolt, and you get 2 functions out of one spell. And I like that. So there's probably about, I'd say 15 to 20 basic spells that you can find and research in libraries fairly easy, or you can cast some off scrolls that take 2 rounds, or you can find another magician's or warlock spell book, and you can cast those spells out of that book. You can be flipping through pages as combat is ensuing all around you, and it takes 2 rounds to cast a spell that isn't from your memory. So if you're casting from a tablet or a scroll or book, it takes 2 rounds, which is, I think it's fair. And then it disintegrates, that page or the scroll or whatever. So you lose that. But you can also memorize these spells too. And you have to do a check to be successful. But if you're not successful, then you lose the spell and you have to refind it or rebuy it again. So there's risk versus reward, which isn't in a lot of games, especially nowadays. And I like that. So back to magic rating. If you're 5th level, you can take that elemental bolt and you can say, okay, we're going to kill this dragon, and I'm going to try to cast this at a 10th level spell. There's no level cap in this game. So you can cast whatever level spell you want to cast, because there's no rules for that. Not that I found, and I've read both books now quite a few times. So if you have a magic rating of 5 and you're casting a 10th level spell, remember, you compare your DCs. So you're at -5 on your roll. But if you're successful, that spell's going to do 10d4 damage, and 10d4 is massive because hit points are not high in Talislanta. So if you're successful, you can, you're casting at a 10d4. Or if it's that glancing blow, if you're only partially successful, or half damage of 10d4. Isn't that awesome? I mean, but remember, you can have a magical mishap if you go into the negatives. But you'll never go into the negatives if you're not taking risk. So, like I said, risk and reward. And I love that about Talislanta. And then I mentioned researching. So you can research these spells, and you can find, there's a whole bunch of lore on all of the different famous wizards of the ages before the current age of Talislanta. And there's probably 50 special spells that have multiple uses in each spell. So there's tons of magic, but you just got to research it and you got to find it. Because you can also find magical books and magical tomes also. And you can research those. And not only do you get rewards, or you could damage the book if you fail, but you also get experience also, which is cool. So you're like, well, I want to play a warrior. I don't get to do that kind of fun stuff. Well, then take your experience and buy primary magic or buy secondary magic. But there's a couple of races, there's a couple of character types that can't do magic, especially the Thrall. They can't have any magical skills. So they kind of got the short end of the stick on that. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Sindar, they don't get any kind of combat. So, if you got anybody melee on you, they're going to be tearing you up because you got no combat rating. So they're going to get a full bonus on you. So you need to keep your distance. But yeah, the magic, the way it is, oh my goodness. The magic is awesome. And I really love the way that it's set up. And like I said, I'm not a huge magic fan, but I am with Talislanta. So what else do I like? Like I said, I like the way the skills are set up because you have crafts and you can craft talismans. That'll give you more tribute bonuses. You can craft weapons. You can with different ingredients and different types of metals. You can craft all kinds of potions and powders and consumables and stuff. I love that. And you have to have the ingredients as well. It's just not, I'm just going to spend 5 gold a day and get my, 5 gold a day. And then after 37,000 days, I'll be able to craft that suit of plate armor. Yeah, crafting is so much better in Talislanta. You just got to have the ingredients. And, there's all kinds of, there's markets, there's black markets. Some of this stuff can't be sold. Some of the toxins and the poisons can't be sold. So you got to go and find them or find them in the black market. I mean, it's awesome. Like I said, it's ahead of its time, man. Researching. I already mentioned researching. But like I said, mages and also warriors that have magic as well. It'll take you a while to get magic because it costs you experience to buy more skills, which is what I like. But yeah, the researching is really cool. But like I said, the Sindars, they can do it too. So it's the only one that really is screwed is you can play an ice giant and they can't have any magic either. But I don't think they can. And then the Thralls. So those are the only two that I remember off my top of my head. And so they kind of get screwed in the deal. But anyways, yeah. And I already mentioned magical tomes and the scrolls and stuff. And you can cast spells off that. And it's awesome. So I've mentioned leveling a couple of times. I really like the way leveling is because in most games now, everything is linear and you get this at level 2, you get this at level 3, you get this at level 4, you get this skill at level 5. It's not like that in Talislanta. You start, when you choose your character type, you get X amount, you get these skills, blah, 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 blah. And if you want to level up, you get about 10 to 13 experience points per game session. And you can take 25 experience and you can level up. But only leveling up, you'll be level 2 or level 3 when you level up. But the only thing leveling up does is it takes all of your skills and it makes them all +1 higher. Except for secondary, when you level up, you get +1 every 2 levels if you have secondary combat or secondary magic. Then your combat rating will go up 1 every other level. Or if you have combat training or magic training, then you get +1 every 4 levels. So really every 5 levels, if you're a Thrall warrior, you'll have combat training and you'll have primary combat. So you'll get 1 for level 2, 1 for level 3, 1 for level 4, and then you'll get +2 at level 5 because of your combat training gives you +1 every 4 levels and primary every level. So that's cool. I like the way. So that's pretty much the only thing that you get for leveling up, except for hit points. You get 2 hit points every time you level. Only 2. There's no constitution modifier added in or anything like that. It's just you get 2 hit points, and that's it. So there's not a lot of hit points in Talislanta. But there's no level cap either. You can be 20th level if you want to be 20th level, and you'll probably be 25. You'll probably have a 25 or 27, 28 combat rating, and you'll destroy stuff, which is awesome. You'll be the destroyer of dragons probably, because dragons, they have a pretty good combat rating also, but they don't have no 25 combat rating. So you would get a hell of a bonus fighting a dragon. But the dragon does a lot more damage than what you're going to do too. So, yeah. So I like the way leveling goes. So the only thing that you get for leveling, like I said, is 2 hit points a level, and primary, 1 +1 a level, any kind of secondary, +1 every 2 levels, and in your training, every 4 levels. And in your skills that you have that you started with your character, +1 every level. It's awesome. So easy. And then here's a great thing you can do with your experience. You can purchase more skills. So say if you start with this skill, skill X, skill Y, skill Z. All right. Sure, they'll level up every time you level, but you can take your experience and you can buy more skills. Even if they're not, you can buy more skills. That's fine. As long as it's, with your primary and stuff. And you can also buy extracurricular skills, they're called, which are skills not related to you. So if you are, if you are a character type that can have magic and combat, and if your primary is if you have primary combat, you can eventually save up, I think it's 50 experience or maybe 100 experience, and you can buy and I could be wrong on those, but it's expensive, but you can also buy primary magic. So you could be a fireball throwing warrior in armor. I mean, because there's no rules. Well, there's some rules to magic, but it's awesome. You can do whatever you want in this game. But you can have 4 extracurricular skills plus your intelligence. So if you don't have any intelligence, then obviously you're only going to be able to buy 4 skills. So, if you're a combat-based character, sure, you'll have primary combat, probably weapon training, and then you save up your XP, you buy primary magic. That's one of your 4 you can have. Then you can buy something like, magic training, and you can buy something if you want to be able to pick pockets. You can buy dex-based thievery or legerdemain or anything like it. It's all, there's so many skills you can choose, and plus, like I said, the Cyclopedia Talislantas, they add even more. And then there's different types of combat. There's different types of spell schools you can buy that are in the cyclopedias, which is, there's all kinds of options to customize your character. But like I said, you're limited to 4 extracurricular skills that aren't your primaries. And if you have a higher intelligence, you get to have 1 more extracurricular skill for every intelligence bonus you have too. So if you have a 4 intelligence, you can have 8 extracurricular skills. But if you don't have anything, then you just get 4, which is still pretty awesome though, But I like the way that the experience works. It's just 2 hit points, +1, +2, or plus, 1 every 2 or 4 levels. And it's awesome. It's great. And, another thing that I really love is I'm huge. I love a huge monster toolbox, right? I love to have definitive ways on how to create monsters and how to level them up and how to adjust them. And Talislanta is so easy. And I wish games would do this. But the way that NPCs are like this. Okay, you can have a creature with a designated level. So you could have a dragon that's 10th level, right? So it is only 10th level. But then there are some kind of creatures that are levels 1 to 10. And they can only be a creature within the level 1 to 10 range. Or 5 to 15. Or level 20 to 25 when you start getting into, like, you know, the gods and stuff like that. And huge, like, creatures, or, you know, they could be 20 to 25 level. And it's easy. The way that the monster stat block is, it gives you a level range, and then it gives you hit points. Okay, if you're going to be a level 1 creature, you have 10 hit points, or plus 2 a level. Or it'll say, if it's 10 to 20 range, it'll say you can have between 10 and 40 hit points, and you just divide that number up. It's so easy. And then for its magic rating or its combat rating, it'll tell you their skills. So if it's a level 10 creature, obviously your skills are going to be at level 10. So it's easy. Or level 3, because the damage always stays the same, because there's not a lot of hit points in Talislanta. But adjusting, their level is so easy. I mean, you can just add or subtract how much magic rating or combat rating that the creature has, and just modify the hit points that way. It's so easy to modify and create monsters. And that I wish more games would keep it simple like that, especially with keeping the damage the same, the monster features, or, the class features. I mean, you could fight thralls in this game. There's a thrall warrior that you can fight. There's a thrall shaman. There's a thrall hunter. So yeah, oh man, it's so great the way that you can, the ease that you have on creating monsters and also modifying them. Modifying is just so easy. So that's pretty much all of the things that I can think of off the top of my head that I love about Talislanta. And especially that I'm older, I appreciate it for what it is, because it's so basic and the lack of rules. And that's why I want to stay with 1st and 2nd edition, is because, like I said, 3rd and 4th, there's just so many more rules, and it doesn't feel like Talislanta when I read those books. But then you could also take those 3rd and 4th edition books, take that content and dummy it down. Well, not dummy it down, but just get rid of the rules mechanics and put it in 1st and 2nd edition. You could do that too. So, but let's see, now that I'm thinking about it, what do I not like about Talislanta? I can't think of anything. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't think of anything that I don't like about Talislanta. I mean, I love the art. The art's amazing. It's old, basic D&D type of art, black and white. The only thing that I don't like about it is I can't think of anything. Maybe too many editions. Maybe, switching publishers so many times. But I mean, that's nothing the consumer can, that's something they can do to prevent. So, but I can't think of anything that I don't like about Talislanta. So, like I said, I've been talking for probably an hour on Talislanta, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And like I said, guys, gals, go to the Talislanta website or Google it and download those PDFs and read about Talislanta, and let me know down in the comments section below, because I love to read the comments and answer them. Let me know what you think of Talislanta. Have you ever heard of it? Did you just download the PDFs and check it out because you watched this video? Are you an old grognard like myself that had played Talislanta as a kid? And did you like it? What did you like? What did you not like? Can you think of anything you don't like? Maybe it's too basic for you. Maybe you're a 3.5 fanboy and you just got to have rules for rules and rules. Maybe you don't like it. I don't know. But it's one of my top 5 all-time favorite games, and it will always be in my top 5. In fact, it's like in my top 3. And that says a lot. So leave a comment down below, thumbs up the video, also subscribe to the YouTube channel, and keep an eye out for my Sandbox Talislanta campaign coming in the future. That's after we play B1 and B2 of basic D&D. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy gaming. Bye, everybody.